You have had phlegm stuck in your throat for weeks, maybe months, maybe so long that you have started to accept it as just the way things are now. You have tried the syrups, you have taken the antibiotics, you have used the sprays and the lozenges and the teas, and every single time the relief lasts a few days at most before that same thick, uncomfortable feeling comes right back. What if the reason nothing has worked is because everything you have tried has been aimed at the wrong target entirely? What if the real cause of that phlegm has absolutely nothing to do with a cold, an infection, or anything respiratory at all? I am Wesley Harper, and today we are uncovering 4 real causes of chronic phlegm that most older adults have never been told about. Not alternative theories, not home remedies. 4 documented causes backed by clinical evidence that explain why so many people suffer with this problem for months and years, while every standard treatment fails them completely. And I want to warn you right now, because number 3 is one that almost nobody connects to phlegm, and because number 4 is something I would be willing to bet no doctor has ever mentioned to you in relation to your throat. Stay with me through all 4, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand your phlegm in a completely different way, and that understanding is what finally opens the door to real relief. Before we get into the 4 causes, drop a comment right now. How long have you been dealing with persistent phlegm or throat clearing? A few weeks, several months, or longer than a year? I genuinely want to know, and your answer might help someone else in this community realize they are not alone in this. Now, before we talk about the 4 causes, I want to make sure you understand something about phlegm itself, because it changes how you see everything else. Your airways from your nose all the way to your lungs are lined with tissue that constantly produces mucus. This is completely normal and completely necessary. Your body produces a significant amount of mucus every single day under normal healthy conditions, and the reason it does this is important. That mucus traps everything that should not reach your lungs. Dust, bacteria, viruses, pollutants. It is your body's internal filtration system. Without it, your lungs would be under constant attack. The problem is not that your body makes mucus. The problem is when something causes your body to make too much of it, or when the mucus becomes thicker and stickier than it should be. When that happens, it stops clearing naturally and starts accumulating in the back of the throat, creating that feeling most people describe as something stuck that will not come out no matter what they do. Think of your airways like a river. A healthy river flows constantly and keeps itself clean. When something disturbs the river, the water slows down, thickens, and pools start forming in places where everything accumulates. Your chronic phlegm is one of those pools. It is not the problem itself. It is the result of something disturbing the natural flow, and until you identify what is disturbing it, you can clear your throat 1,000 times a day, and nothing will change permanently. So what is disturbing it? Let us go through the 4 causes, one by one. The first cause is one that is sitting in most people's refrigerators right now and being consumed multiple times every single day. Dairy products, milk, cheese, yogurt, butter, ice cream. Now, before you dismiss this, let me explain the specific mechanism, because this is not just a general suggestion that dairy is bad for some people. There is a clear biological process here worth understanding. Cow's milk contains a protein called casein. In people with even a mild sensitivity to casein, and we are talking about a much more common and subtle sensitivity than a full milk allergy, casein triggers a local inflammatory response in the tissues of the airways, not a dramatic reaction, not one that causes obvious allergy symptoms. A quiet, low-level, ongoing irritation that alters mucus production in a sustained way. The mechanism works like this. Casein can stimulate certain immune cells to release histamine. You have probably heard of histamine in the context of seasonal allergies. It is the substance responsible for the runny nose and congestion people get in spring when pollen counts are high. One of histamine's effects is to increase mucus production in the airways. This is documented and well understood. It is not controversial. Now here is the part that makes this so easy to miss. The effect is not immediate. You do not drink a glass of milk and notice phlegm 20 minutes later. The response is gradual and cumulative. Your body tolerates it for days, weeks, even months. But that low-level inflammation builds quietly in the background until it reaches a point your body can no longer compensate for, and then the phlegm appears and stays. This is why so many older adults who consume dairy at every meal, coffee with milk at breakfast, cheese at lunch, yogurt in the afternoon, have had persistent phlegm for months without ever thinking to connect it to what they are eating. The simplest experiment you can do right now costs nothing. Eliminate all dairy products completely for 21 days, not 5 days, 21 days, because that is how long it takes for the cumulative inflammation to calm down enough to notice a real difference. Replace cow's milk with oat milk, almond milk, or rice milk. Check the labels on packaged foods, because powdered milk and whey are hidden in far more products than most people realize. If your phlegm improves significantly during those 3 weeks, you have found your answer. You can choose to stay dairy-free or gradually reintroduce it to find how much your body tolerates before symptoms return. If nothing changes after 21 days, bring dairy back without concern, and we keep looking at the other causes. The second cause is one that is going to be immediately relevant for a large number of older adults watching this video, and it is remarkable how often it goes completely unrecognized for months and sometimes years. Certain blood pressure medications. There is a class of medications very commonly prescribed for high blood pressure and heart protection called ACE inhibitors. The names you might recognize include lisinopril, enalapril, ramipril, and several others. These medications are prescribed to millions of older adults, and they genuinely do important work protecting the heart and managing blood pressure. But one of the most well-documented side effects of this entire class of medication is a chronic cough and persistent phlegm that does not go away for as long as the person continues taking the medication. Research suggests this affects somewhere between 10 and 20% of people who take these drugs. In some populations, the rate may be even higher. Here is why it happens. These medications work by blocking a specific enzyme in the body. One of that enzyme's normal jobs is to break down a substance called bradykinin. When the enzyme is blocked, bradykinin builds up in the tissues rather than being cleared. Bradykinin is a potent irritant to the lining of the airways. It activates cough receptors and stimulates ongoing mucus production. Not occasionally, every single day, continuously, for as long as the medication is in your system. What makes this particularly difficult to catch is the timing. The cough and phlegm do not always appear in the first days or weeks of taking the medication. They can develop weeks or even months after starting it. So when the symptom shows up, the person does not connect it to a medication they started taking several months earlier. And if their doctor does not carefully review every medication they are taking, and when they started each one, the connection never gets made. The result is months or years of persistent phlegm, multiple courses of antibiotics that do nothing because there is no infection to treat, chest x-rays that show nothing abnormal, and a patient who is told everything looks fine while continuing to suffer from a side effect nobody identified. If you take any blood pressure medication, please do not stop taking it on your own. That is genuinely dangerous for people with hypertension or heart disease. What you should do is bring your medication bottle to your next appointment and ask your doctor one direct question. Could this medication be causing my cough and phlegm? There are alternative blood pressure medications that provide the same protective benefits without the mechanism that causes this respiratory side effect. Your doctor can assess whether switching is appropriate for you. If you know someone who takes blood pressure medication and has had a persistent cough or throat clearing that nobody can explain, please share this video with them. It could save them months of unnecessary suffering. Now, the third cause is the one that surprises people the most, because when I tell you where it originates, most people immediately think it cannot possibly be related to their throat. But the connection is real, well documented, and often the single biggest factor in chronic phlegm for older adults. Silent reflux. Most people know what acid reflux feels like. The burning in the chest, the sour taste, the discomfort after eating. But silent reflux is completely different because in most cases, it causes absolutely no heartburn at all. No burning, no obvious acid sensation, nothing that would ever make you think your stomach is involved. The word silent is there for a reason. Here is what is actually happening. When the valve between your stomach and esophagus does not close completely, and this becomes more common as we age, small amounts of stomach acid can travel silently up the esophagus and reach the back of the throat, the larynx, and the vocal cords. These areas have no protection against acid the way the stomach lining does. So when acid reaches them repeatedly, even in small amounts that produce no burning sensation, it causes chronic low-level inflammation. And when the throat feels that repeated irritation, it does the only thing it can to protect itself. It produces mucus, a thick protective coating over the irritated tissue. That mucus is not the problem. It is your body's defense against an acid it was never designed to handle. Think of a dripping faucet leaving a slow trickle of water on a kitchen counter. A single drip does nothing, but that same drip landing in the same spot every single night for months begins to damage the surface. That is what acid does to the back of your throat over time. A quiet, ongoing erosion that your body responds to with more and more protective mucus. The reason symptoms are usually worst in the morning is that lying flat removes gravity's help in keeping stomach contents down. While you sleep, acid can travel upward much more easily. Many people with silent reflux wake up hoarse, spend the first hour of the morning constantly clearing their throat, and feel like their throat does not fully clear until well into the morning. If this pattern sounds familiar, silent reflux may be a significant part of what you are experiencing. 4 specific changes address this effectively. First, finish eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed. Your stomach needs that time to empty enough to reduce the pressure that pushes acid upward. Second, elevate the head of your bed by raising the legs at the head end with books or wooden blocks. Extra pillows under your head do not work because they only bend your neck. The entire upper body needs to be at an incline so gravity works in your favor while you sleep. Third, identify foods that relax the valve between your stomach and esophagus and reduce them. The main ones are coffee, alcohol, chocolate, very fatty meals, and heavily spiced foods. Fourth, eat smaller portions at each meal. A very full stomach creates more internal pressure, which makes acid travel upward more easily. These changes are free, simple, and people who implement them consistently often notice meaningful improvement within a few weeks without any new medications. Comment below right now if this description of morning hoarseness and persistent throat clearing throughout the day sounds like your experience. You would be surprised how many people watching this have been living with silent reflux for years without knowing it. Now, the fourth cause is the one that I believe has the greatest impact of all, and the one that is most completely ignored in standard medical care. When I share this one, it genuinely changes how people understand their health. Because the organ we are about to talk about is nowhere near your throat, and yet it may be the most powerful driver of your persistent phlegm. Your gut. I understand that sounds unexpected, but the connection between your gut health and the amount of mucus your airways produce is one of the most significant discoveries in medical research over the past 15 years, and it is still not making its way into routine medical consultations in any meaningful way. Here's what the research shows. Your gut is home to trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, and other organisms that together form what scientists call the gut microbiome. When this community is diverse and balanced with healthy populations of beneficial bacteria, it does something most people never knew the gut was responsible for. 70% of your immune system is directly associated with your gut. That is not a rough estimate. That is documented anatomy and physiology. When the microbiome is balanced, it sends signals that keep your immune system in a state of calm, controlled readiness. Not overactive, not underactive, steady. And that steady immune state keeps inflammation throughout the entire body at a healthy, manageable level, including in your airways. But when the microbiome becomes unbalanced, when harmful bacteria outnumber beneficial ones, when the gut lining loses its integrity, the immune system reads this as a persistent, ongoing threat. It responds with inflammation. And that inflammation is not contained to the gut. It travels through the bloodstream and through the nervous system, reaching every organ in the body, including your respiratory tract. The result in your airways is increased inflammation of the lining, increased mucus production, and greater sensitivity to environmental irritants. More phlegm, more coughing, more throat clearing, a cycle that continues because the underlying cause in the gut is never addressed. What destroys the gut microbiome and sets this cycle in motion? 4 things that are extremely common in older adults. The first is repeated courses of antibiotics. This is the most frustrating one because antibiotics are often what doctors prescribe for persistent phlegm even when there is no bacterial infection to treat. Antibiotics do not distinguish between harmful bacteria and the beneficial bacteria your gut depends on. Every course of antibiotics eliminates a broad population of gut bacteria, including the beneficial ones your immune system relies on. One course taken for a genuine infection and the microbiome can recover, but 2, 3, 4 courses over the course of a year dealing with phlegm that keeps returning, the damage to the microbiome accumulates. The weakened microbiome drives more systemic inflammation. That inflammation worsens the airways. The phlegm returns or worsens. More antibiotics get prescribed. The cycle continues getting worse with each round. The second is a diet high in sugar and processed foods. The most damaging bacteria in the gut feed specifically on simple sugars. Sugary drinks, white bread, processed snacks, packaged foods with long ingredient lists. Every time these foods are consumed, they feed the organisms most harmful to the gut ecosystem, while the beneficial bacteria slowly starve. This dietary pattern is extremely common in older adults, and its connection to respiratory symptoms is almost never discussed. The third is chronic ongoing stress. Sustained long-term stress directly affects the permeability of the gut lining. When the gut wall loses its structural integrity, substances that are supposed to stay inside the gut, fragments of bacteria, partially digested particles, toxins, pass through into the bloodstream. The immune system detects these as threats and mounts a whole body inflammatory response that affects multiple organs simultaneously, including the airways. The fourth is low fiber intake. The beneficial bacteria in your gut feed on fiber from vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and fruits. When fiber intake is consistently low, those beneficial bacteria do not have the food they need to survive, and their populations gradually decline. The balance shifts toward the harmful bacteria, and chronic low-level inflammation quietly takes hold. Now look at how these 4 factors combine in a typical older adult dealing with persistent phlegm. They have taken multiple rounds of antibiotics for the phlegm over the past year, each one further depleting their microbiome. Their diet is relatively low in vegetables and fiber and includes daily sugary drinks or processed foods. They are living with a level of chronic stress that never fully resolves. Their beneficial gut bacteria are depleted, their immune system is in a state of ongoing low-level activation, and their airways are chronically inflamed, producing excess mucus every single day as a result. No throat spray is going to fix that. No antibiotic is going to fix that. No cough syrup addresses that root cause at all. What does address it is rebuilding the gut microbiome deliberately and consistently. Probiotic-rich foods like plain unsweetened yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi introduce beneficial bacteria back into the gut. Prebiotic foods like garlic, onion, oats, bananas, lentils, and beans provide the fiber those bacteria need to thrive and multiply. Removing or significantly reducing sugar and processed foods eliminates the food source that harmful bacteria depend on. Managing stress through regular movement, deep breathing, quality sleep, and whatever genuinely helps you decompress is not optional. It is a direct contribution to gut health and therefore to respiratory health. This is not a quick fix. The microbiome rebuilds over 4 to 12 weeks of consistent effort, but people who address this consistently see a reduction in phlegm that no antibiotic ever gave them, because they are finally addressing the actual cause. So let us bring all 4 together clearly. Dairy products triggering a casein-related histamine response that quietly drives ongoing mucus production. Blood pressure medications from the ACE inhibitor class causing a direct pharmacological irritation of the airway lining. Silent reflux, sending acid up to the throat during sleep, causing protective mucus production with no burning sensation to identify it. And gut dysbiosis, creating system-wide immune activation and airway inflammation that keeps mucus production elevated continuously. 4 causes. Any one of them can be responsible for months of persistent phlegm. Some people are dealing with 2 or 3 of them simultaneously, which is why their symptoms have been so stubborn and so resistant to everything standard medicine offers. You now have something most people suffering with this problem never get: a real explanation and a real direction to look. If today's video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone you know who has been dealing with persistent throat clearing or phlegm that nothing seems to fix. You might be giving them the answer they have been searching for. Subscribe if you are not already part of this community. Every week I bring you honest, practical health information built specifically for adults over 60. And leave a comment below. Which of these 4 causes do you think applies most to your situation? I read every single comment, and your answer genuinely helps me understand what this community needs most. Take good care of yourself. You deserve real answers, not just more of the same treatments that were never addressing the right cause. I will see you in the next one. Just remember, this video is for educational and informational purposes only. Always talk to your doctor or healthcare provider before making any changes to your medications, supplements, diet, or health routine.